Sometimes the people closest to us reveal their true nature when they think nobody's watching. My name is Thomas, and I'm about to tell you about the day my stepmother tried to steal everything my father worked for, not knowing I held the key to her downfall. It was a cold Tuesday morning in March when my father, William, passed away after a long battle with cancer. I'd been his primary caregiver for the last 6 months, taking leave from my job as an accountant to make sure he had everything he needed. During those final weeks, we spent countless hours talking about life, his regrets, and most importantly, his wishes for after he was gone. My stepmother Monica had been in the picture for about 8 years. She married my dad when I was 25, and while I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, something always felt off about her motivations. She was 20 years younger than Dad, had no job, and seemed more interested in his pension and life insurance than actually caring for him during his illness. The thing is, when someone's dying, you see people's true colors. While I was there every day helping Dad with medications, doctor appointments, and just keeping him company, Monica was mysteriously absent. She always had somewhere else to be, some friend to visit, some shopping to do. She'd show up for an hour, complain about the smell of the medicine, and disappear again. 3 weeks before Dad passed, he pulled me aside during one of our quiet afternoons together. His voice was weak, but his eyes were clear and determined. He told me something that would change everything. "Thomas," he said, gripping my hand, "I need you to know that I've made some changes to my will. Monica doesn't know about this, and I need you to promise me something. There's a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box number 247. I'm giving you the key now, and inside you'll find the real will dated just last month. Whatever Monica shows people after I'm gone, that's not the real one." I was confused. Why would there be 2 wills? Dad explained that he'd discovered Monica had been going through his papers, and he suspected she might try to forge documents or present an older version that was more favorable to her. So he'd worked with his lawyer, Patricia Holloway, to create a new will and keep it completely secret. The real will was clear. The house would go to me along with 70% of his assets. Monica would receive 30% and could live in the house for up to 1 year to get back on her feet, but then she'd need to find her own place. It was generous considering she'd only been married to him for 8 years and had contributed nothing to building the life he was leaving behind. I took that key and promised him I'd make sure his real wishes were honored. The funeral was held on a Friday at Morton's funeral home. It was a small service, maybe 40 people, mostly Dad's old co-workers, neighbors, and a few distant relatives. Monica played the grieving widow perfectly, wearing an expensive black dress I'd never seen before, dabbing her eyes with tissues, accepting condolences like she'd been devoted to him for decades. After the service, everyone gathered in the main reception room for coffee and sandwiches. That's when Monica stood up and asked for everyone's attention. My stomach dropped because I knew what was coming. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," she began, her voice shaking with what seemed like emotion. "William was such a generous man, and even in his final wishes he made sure to take care of everyone he loved." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded document. "This is William's last will and testament, dated 18 months ago. I think it's important that everyone knows how he wanted his affairs handled." I watched in disbelief as she began reading. According to her version, she was inheriting the house, the car, and 85% of Dad's assets. I would receive only 15% and some personal items. She read it with such confidence, even managing to look sad about it, like she wished Dad had been more generous to his only son. People in the room started murmuring. I could see the looks of confusion and disappointment on faces of people who knew how close Dad and I had been, especially during his final months. My Uncle Frank looked like he wanted to say something, but Monica quickly folded up the paper before anyone could examine it closely. "Of course, I plan to help Thomas in any way I can," she added, putting her hand over her heart. William wouldn't want his son to struggle. The condescending tone in her voice was the final straw. I stood up from my chair in the back of the room and every head turned toward me. Monica's face went pale when she saw the expression on my face. "That's interesting, Monica," I said, walking slowly toward the front of the room, "because I have something different here." I pulled out the real will still in its official envelope from Holloway and Associates law firm. The envelope was sealed and had never been opened. "This is Dad's actual last will and testament dated 3 weeks ago. I have the key to his safety deposit box, and this was inside, along with a notarized letter explaining exactly why he felt the need to hide his real wishes." You could hear a pin drop in that room. Monica's confident expression cracked, and I saw panic flash in her eyes. "That's impossible," she stammered. "William gave me his will months ago. He wouldn't have changed it without telling me." I opened the envelope and began reading Dad's real will aloud. As I got to the part about Monica receiving 30% instead of 85% and how she'd need to vacate the house within a year, her face went from pale to completely white, but I wasn't done. I also read Dad's attached letter, which he'd written specifically for this moment. In it, he explained that he'd discovered Monica going through his private papers multiple times, and that she'd asked suspicious questions about his life insurance policies and bank accounts. He wrote that while he didn't want to leave her with nothing, he couldn't in good conscience give the majority of his life's work to someone who seemed more interested in his death than his life. The room was dead silent except for Monica's shallow breathing. Then my Uncle Frank spoke up. "Monica, where exactly did you get that? Will you just read?" She opened her mouth but no words came out. Her hands were shaking and the fake will she'd been holding slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. William, he gave it to me," she managed to whisper. "When?" Frank pressed. "Because Thomas was with William almost every day for the last 6 months. When exactly did he give you a will that contradicts what he put in his safety deposit box 3 weeks ago?" That's when Monica's legs gave out. She collapsed into the nearest chair, and for the first time since I'd known her, her mask completely fell away. Gone was the grieving widow, the caring wife, the woman who just wanted what was best for everyone. What remained was someone who'd been caught in a lie so big, so calculated that there was no way to explain it away. The funeral director, who'd been standing in the back, quietly asked if we needed to call the police. Monica's head snapped up at that word, and she finally found her voice again. "No, please," she said, looking directly at me for the first time. "Thomas, I'm sorry, I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go. I thought if I could just buy some time." But I was done listening to her excuses. "Monica, you didn't just lie. You created a fake legal document and tried to defraud Dad's estate. That's a felony." The reality of her situation seemed to hit her all at once. She wasn't just losing the inheritance she'd tried to steal. She was looking at potential criminal charges for forgery and fraud. In the end, Monica packed her things and left the house within a week. She never contested the real will, probably because her lawyer told her she didn't have a leg to stand on. The fake will she'd presented wasn't even a good forgery. It had inconsistencies in the date, format, and legal language that any attorney would have caught immediately. I kept my promise to Dad. His real wishes were honored, his assets were distributed according to his actual will, and Monica got exactly what he intended for her to have, nothing more, nothing less. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been there that day, or if Dad hadn't been smart enough to anticipate Monica's deception. How many people suffer in silence when someone tries to rewrite their loved one's final wishes for personal gain? The experience taught me that grief can make people do desperate things, but it also showed me the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. My father spent his whole life working hard and being honest with people. The least I could do was make sure his final wishes were respected. Monica moved to another state, and I never heard from her again. The house became mine, just as Dad intended, and every time I walk through it I'm reminded not just of him, but of the day I learned that sometimes doing the right thing means calling out lies, even when everyone's watching. My father raised me to be honest, to work hard, and to stand up for what I believe in. That day at his funeral I honored all 3 of those lessons, and I think he would have been proud.